15 degrees, you can see your breath. Out here in the lake effect, breaking tables like it's poetry. Where else would you rather be? Pinto, Ron, Elvis, and the Lay Poncho. The members that you need to know. 'Cause once you out here now, your family. Where else would you rather be? Where else would you rather be?
Welcome into the Nickel City Crew. I am your host, Rob Crippen. Please like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Nickel City Crew. This episode, along with all of our episodes, are presented by Crippen Legacy Entertainment here on Spreaker and StreamYard. We're so glad that you're joining us for some of your Buffalo Bills and NFL content again today. And as always, these are my Bills thoughts said out loud.
It's a vibe so ridiculous. Since 12 plus 83 was 6. The shout rocking like a symphony. Where else would you rather be?
All right, let's get straight to it. I am really excited about tonight's episode. One of the main reasons that I actually started this podcast was because of the fact that it was literally that little outro right there, like Bills thoughts said out loud. I would constantly talk to myself about the Bills in my own head and constantly come up with different ideas for the team and different ideas for the direction of the team and what I wanted to see happen. And it was just something where I just had to kind of get this stuff out there into the atmosphere. And I again stopped being scared, and then I started recording and stopped caring about what people think. And then obviously one thing led to another where we are season 3 into this whole thing. And I'm so happy now. I've got my co-host with me and one of my good friends who we've grown closer throughout this entire process. Joining me as always tonight, my co-host, Adam Dump Truck Rubsick. Holla at the crew, DT. This has been interesting, man. We have started a little bit of a topic on WGR these last couple of days. I know we're not even in the dog days of summer yet, but it's coming up before you know it. And man, this has been a topic and something that has been, near and dear to our heart here on Nickel City Crew about, Sean McDermott and the direction of the team and where we're going. Holla at the crew, DT. What's good? Adam Dump Truck Rubsick. Holla at the crew, DT.
Nickel City. Good to be back, Rob. How we doing? Another week, another dollar. That's how we do. Always. We're in the dog days of the off season, as you said, and looking forward to getting into it tonight for sure. I was a little, during the week, I was not concerned because we can always find something to talk about with this team and our fandom, and if anything, we can just sit here and shoot the shit. But when you hit me up today about being on GR and whatnot, which I'm surprised, I usually get some local Nickel City crew listeners that if they hear you on there, they'll let me know. Hey, Rob was on GR, so they must have not been on that night. But I'm excited to kind of hear it, see what it sounded like, and it touches the topic of really the burning topic of something we can really focus in on, and it starts up top with Sean. So we'll get into it.
Yeah, man. It was interesting because, yesterday they were talking about Sean McDermott on WGR on Show from the Bulldog. And it was a situation where I just kept, I was hearing some things. And then all of a sudden I just felt kind of compelled to just call in because I wanted to make sure that, Nickel City Crew was represented. We have not called for Sean McDermott's job here at Nickel City Crew. Now, one thing that we have always, kind of tried to shine a light on is the fact that I want him to kind of, hold himself to the same accountability that he holds his players to, growth mindset and all the other catchy phrases, and trust the process, all these different, phrases that come up for the Buffalo Bills and under his tutelage. I wanted him to kind of practice what he's preaching, so to speak. And it was a situation where they were kind of just talking about him, DT, and then all of a sudden I just couldn't help it. I called in, I talked to the screener, and he said, hold on, we'll try to get you on. And this is kind of what happened thereafter, because not only was it a conversation that percolated really and started a great conversation, but it kind of carried over into today with Jeremy White show with, Joe DiBiase, Sneaky Joe, and then even the afternoon show thereafter. Show from the Bulldog again today started off their afternoon show kind of talking about it. We're recording these on Wednesdays, and it was crazy, DT, because, I don't think that Sean McDermott has done enough to kind of, just get carte blanche. I don't think that he's done enough to where he's just a made man, so to speak. You know what I mean? Goodfellas. I just don't think that he's in that type of situation. And I'm watching him closely. I want to shine a light on the fact that I think that he has kind of changed his stripes when it comes to the big games, DT. I think that it's just a fact. The way that the reason that I started calling the show was because Shope was laying out all of the, playoff defeats and all of the different progression as we've gone through. And we've done the same thing on our show and Sugar High Josh and all of the different things and the transition. And it was a situation where, listen, man, Sean McDermott is responsible for this team. He's got the reins of the team. Now Leslie Frazier is out. So obviously the defense is all on him. And I just don't want it to be a situation where we're giving this guy a pass because he doesn't eat dog biscuits, quite frankly, DT.
Yeah, well, the old Rex Ryan label there, and
He's not
that was
running the
the
frat house.
strong excitement because the Bills needed something, and on top of conservative coach after conservative coach, you get Rex Ryan in here and spice it up a little, and then Sean McDermott comes in and he kind of reaps that happy medium of definitely conservative and hard nosed and not about flash or anything like that, but he does seem like he is, a player's coach, and the players do kind of feel like he relates to them in a way as there's been some under grumblings of, coordinators or whatever the case is, nothing out public, nothing proven, it's all speculation at this point when it comes to
Right.
Sean McDermott, and rightfully so, that the organization isn't gonna, be condoning anything that, looks at him in a bad light by any means. But yeah, I mean, we talked about it time in and time out, and again, like you mentioned earlier, we're not calling for his head or anything like that.
Not yet,
But
no.
but the fact that he doesn't go on trial enough, I think, is a good talking point. And the no hide reference this year. This is all in, all out, and I think in today's world, everything from ordering a coffee to winning the Super Bowl is a lot less patience than it was even 5 years
Yes.
ago.
Yes.
That might be some term with social media, with how everything is, so everybody's right on everything right away.
Right.
Sensitivity. Everybody sees it all. Everybody has an opinion. The fire feels hotter now than it definitely did 5 years ago when it comes to stuff like that, where you may be able to skate through and you may be able to fly under the radar and you may be able to get a situation where you can be a long-term person in a position. Even in my company, there was,
Yes.
when I started, 9 years ago, there was people in their roles for 20 plus years and had not even thought about getting out of them. And now as the new age comes, it's turn and burn for me lately. And we see it in coaching in all the sports, which we'll get into tonight. So I think just society has changed a little more act now, reaction now, what have you done for me lately? Which, kind of diminishes the idea that he is going to be a forever type of coach unless you start seeing some rings, right?
Yes, it's funny because one of the words that you used in that was patience, and patience was one of the big things that they were talking about on the morning show this morning. Again, it's we record these on Wednesday, so the Wednesday morning show with Jeremy and Joe DiBiase, they were talking about how patient, and Joe was talking about how patient he's going to be and different things like that. And he wasn't quite there, but he might be there next year. So let's set the table again. This is just something where, again, this was kind of the impetus of the show. The whole point of me starting the podcast was to get my Bills thoughts said out loud. So I'm just a little bit in a great mood tonight, just kind of bragging on Nickel City Crew and bragging on you and I, because this is a conversation that you and I have had back in season 1. Back in season 2, not calling for his job once again, but making sure that we were shining the spotlight on some of the tendencies that we saw that could be a little bit troubling. So here is me yesterday on behalf of Nickel City Crew calling up WGR during the 5 o'clock hour. WGR, if you don't have their app, or if you've on, they've got one of their apps, so whatever the case may be, you can go on Odyssey, check it out. It was the 5 o'clock hour around 5:14 in.
I'm a little worried about the fact that they haven't won it yet. Of course, that would vary maybe widely around here. Here's Rob with us. Hi, Rob.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. I appreciate it.
Sure, Rob. Thanks for calling us.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, I enjoyed the way that you just broke down, Mike, how the season progressions have gone through the playoffs. I think that the one linchpin to the whole entire situation has just been the coach in respect to the fact of how he's come up and changed his stride, so to speak, in the biggest games. And I feel that he coaches not to lose. I've talked about it before many times, and I just love the way you laid it out, because I have laid out the progression as well, because we did have that sugar high, Josh, and nobody was upset after the Houston game. And Kyle Brandt comes out, with that coin phrase, and everybody understood that we were on the trajectory going upwards, and it felt great. And then I just feel like letdown after letdown, and I don't know how I'll feel after another letdown, because 13 seconds, in my personal opinion, was one of the best shots until obviously we win the Super Bowl, and then obviously it wasn't. And I just kind of feel that about the way the coach coaches in the biggest games.
Thanks, Rob. And if we have talked before, you know what I'm thinking, probably, because I'm not sure I've changed my position at all on this. I can't find peace in talking about, here we have Doc Rivers today, talking about a coaching change to a team that wins 75% of its games in the NFL, where like nobody keeps that pace. That to me, like if you told me, put it to a vote, if you told me they went 13-4, sorry, how stupid that sounds. If you told me they went 13-4 and lost in the second round to anybody, I doubt I'm going to want a coaching change. And if you want to tell me exactly how it happened, you want to tell me that he forgot how many guys line up on the field for a play, and there were 15 guys on the field, and they still got scored on, and the penalty flag was just adding to the embarrassment. I don't know that I would take that to mean they should have a new coach.
Now, DT, let's unpack that, man, because listen, that's a situation where you're almost giving this guy carte blanche. Like now obviously he was being, facetious, and he was obviously, hyperbole with the 15 players on the field. But I don't think that this, like, McDermott doesn't just get like this leash and this golden leash where he's just able to do whatever he wants to do just because of the fact that he is a professional, and that he's brought a sense of camaraderie to the Buffalo Bills, and he's brought a sense of culture, if you will. That word always gets me stuck up, because culture is based on winning. If you win, then you have a great culture. If you're losing, then you have a shitty one. So I'm not going to give him too many merit badges for the fact that he has not ran a frat house like Rex Ryan did. I push against that whole narrative that he is in a situation where he is untouchable. And I was really wondering what you thought about it, because of the fact that obviously you just heard on Western New York's #1 sports talk radio show, I call in and we're met with, you sound crazy if you even want to bring it up. And eventually that's what, the poetic justice in it was, that, eventually it didn't sound crazy, because it sparked an entire worth of conversations later in his show. It sparked conversations this morning on Jeremy and Joe DiBiase, and then it sparked more conversations on the afternoon show once again. So this is on the fans' minds. This is percolating. If the Buffalo Bills go out again in the playoffs in similar fashion, and it's under the situation where we're looking at Sean McDermott cross-eyed, I think that it's perfectly reasonable to start looking at him and to start saying, maybe there's a situation where we can find an offensive coach specifically, because I want to go offense, to replace this guy, because I'm not okay with just being okay. The same way that we just saw Doc Rivers handled in Philadelphia. It looks crazy, but listen, man, sometimes it just seems like you might hit a ceiling.
You got to graduate, Rob. You harped on that at the end of the season.
We talked about
you got to graduate fandom, and you got to graduate as an organization too, and that's what we've been doing. As you start with 7 years ago, coming in 9-7, turning that team around, taking them to the playoffs. You get your franchise quarterback, go through the growing pains in year one, and then it's been pretty much, solid until the playoffs every year after that, with dominant fashion. But as you turn this, I think society has changed. Just hypersensitive. There's no patience anywhere. Doug Peterson won the Super Bowl with the Eagles and he got fired the next year, Rob.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a serious game of, what have you done for me lately? And that's, everybody knows that at this point. I think, I think Sean McDermott's doing a good job. I think he's not just in the in the driver's seat right now because, oh, wow, we're running regular season games. How could we ever go with somebody else? I think the organization truly believes he's our best fit, as head coach. And I'll believe that right now and probably until I'm on my last one, Rob. I'm on my last one. I'll give it to you there. If the same thing happens this year, I think my tune changes and it's time to get after it. Like it's time to move on, time to change it up. You only got Josh Allen for so long, and that's that right now. That's my key to a Super Bowl is Josh Allen. And until if we waste him and do this every year, it's going to be something we can never forgive for. So I think I'm up to one more. I don't think he's a made man, but with the patience in society right now, it's as they would kind of say, like, yeah, I'll take 13-4 and not have a coaching change, but you do it again, people are kind of murmuring about it now. You do it again, Rob, it's going to be a whole different story. I mean, the whole mafia itself, I think, will revolt and get closer to our side than Shope's.
Yeah, man. I mean, it'll be interesting because, like how the morning show started, was just like they were talking about when they actually got to the topic this morning was just about how, like, how much is like when is good, not good enough. And Jeremy was great. And he's I love listening to Jeremy White, and he was great with his, rebuttals. And one of his main rebuttals was like, well, then if it's not going to be Sean, then who is it? And what's the name? And kind of, Joe was trying to get along, to the point that we've already made, last season was that, like, it doesn't matter when you have a revolving door at offensive coordinator, it always is going to put you at a disadvantage to a certain extent because every year the continuity is not there. And that's good or bad. If Josh Allen is an MVP candidate and he is tearing it up and he is, lighting the league on fire, then they're going to give credit as well to the offensive coordinator, just like they did with Dable. And eventually Dorsey leaves and he gets his own head coaching job. Or the inverse is that if he's shitty, then eventually he's going to get fired because we're not going to want to have a crappy offense, and we're not going to want to see him go out and score 10 points in the playoffs like they did against Cincinnati this past year. So eventually we'll be calling for changes regardless. It doesn't really matter whether it's positive or negative of the result because of the fact that we're going to get to the same place. You're always going to be churning over these guys. And I just look at it in a situation where let's get some continuity. Let's make sure that we have something on the offensive side of football where we always know what's going to happen. Josh Allen is our quarterback. 17's leading the offense. And then we have the Andy Reid to the Patrick Mahomes. We have that same type of, Tom Moore to, Peyton Manning in Indy. We have that type of continuity where everything is kind of staying the same. You know what I mean? Like everything is staying the same in respects to the play caller and the scheme and the different types of variations of the offense. We can add wrinkles and different things like that. Like, I have no idea right now if Ken Dorsey knows what the hell he's doing. Now we're going to find out. We've already talked about that. There's going to be nowhere to hide for him or McDermott this year. But, like, I don't know. And how you heard me when I ended that call. I don't know if that game against Kansas City was the best chance. 13 seconds might have been the best chance. I started an entire episode off one time talking about Dan Marino and talking about how everybody thought after his second year in the league, he was going back to the Super Bowl and he was so prime because of such an ultra talent that he was. And Aaron Rodgers has got one ring, even to this point. Like, you just never know. And I don't want to count these seasons and just keep sweeping them under the rug where it's like, oh yeah, we got really close, but you know what I mean? It's okay. We'll get him next year. I just don't know how often that's going to fly, man. I really don't.
And I think that's kind of what's flying currently, but I don't think we're far away from the changeup, Rob. And that's, what my point earlier was. I think we're getting close to a changeup if it does happen again. I definitely don't remember. I don't know how you kind of, as you were a lot younger as well back then, of when the Bills were making the Super Bowl runs and they were the dominant team in the NFL, right, and they lose 4 Super Bowls in a row. Obviously, firing Marv Levy was not, on top of people's priority list here. But what was the
by the end of it? By the end, they were. They, I heard a caller today on WGR.
They're
by
the end, they were. Right?
Yeah, by the end.
Yeah. So, obviously, this team hasn't gone to 4 Super Bowls. This current team hasn't gone to 4 Super Bowls or anything like that. But, they've been Super Bowl caliber in the years and haven't been able to at least touch it. I think it'd be a little different if we went to the Super Bowl and lost. I think
Okay.
that would kind of buy him a couple more years of
Yes, I
whatever.
heard that today. They were talking about, like they were talking about on Show Up in the Bulldog. Like they acknowledged the fact that, the morning show had talked about this topic this
Yeah,
morning, and they were talking and saying, like, basically, they were talking about our show, the entire show on the morning show or whatever, for a nice little segment. And like one of their things was that, like, this is about Super Bowl or bust, right? And I'm like, what have I always said, DT? What have I always said, Nickel City Crew, Bills Mafia? I've always said, be the AFC representative, and I will let the chips fall. If we go to
yeah,
0-5, I will show up at the barbershop every week, every other week with my Kings. We'll get our hair cut, and I'll get ribbed. And oh man, your boy, I love losing Super Bowl. Like that's what the Bills were when I was growing up. So it's
yeah,
nothing new for me. So if I've got to endure some more jokes or whatever the case may be, then I'll endure some more jokes. So we'll be 0-5. And how could you lose all 5? But I just want to represent. I want to be in that spot. It doesn't
yeah.
matter if we win or not in respects to leading up to Super Bowl Sunday. I want the Bills to be represented in the American Football Conference in the Super Bowl. I'm okay with it. And Sean McDermott definitely will get a huge pass for me if he's able to get us to that actual level. I'm not in a situation where I'm calling for this guy's head just for no reason. I think that he changes his stripes in the playoffs, and it is a major problem for me. Joe DiBiase this morning said that he has no reason right now to be mad at McDermott. I do. Like, I think that we missed out on a Super Bowl opportunity a couple of years ago, and I still think that he's hurting us the same way that he sucked the life out of his team when he kept punting against the Bengals right before half. We're down. We have a chance to tie the game. Who knows what's going to happen after that if you don't punt and you punt again? And it's just like, man, you are sucking the life out of your team, just like you did against Kansas City when you kept kicking all those field goals, man. Like you are negatively impacting your own team.
It's a fine line of real versus fake diamonds here, Rob. The real diamonds, the fake diamonds look just as good as real ones, right?
Yes. Yes.
You can't tell until the pressure starts, right? And the
Yes.
pressure starts, in the playoffs, and that has
Yes.
been consistently. Even the Josh Allen sugar high game against Houston, it just seems like every matchup they've lost in the playoffs has been some sort of coaching blunder, and that's the issue we're talking about here, Rob. And that's what you keep going in on is the fact that the coaching blunders are. You could probably get most of Bill's Mafia and these guys on GR to somewhat agree that these 3 losses came down to coaching at one point. Even the losses during the regular seasons on these runs, have come down to something similar to that. The Vikings game this year was kind of all over the
Ridiculous.
place, and and some other things happen, right? You're going to lose games in the NFL, whatever. But
Right.
when the pressure's on, are you a real diamond or a fake diamond? And so far, he's been crushed every time the pressure gets to him, and it's gotta change. You got to make yourself a little harder going in, but it. I don't think society or mafia is going to give many more chances, Rob. This is, and
I
we're
don't
not,
know.
again, and I know our listeners don't need us to reiterate this, but we're not calling for him yet. But we have to be open to the fact that it's not good enough currently. So, don't be accepting with what we've had. You got to take it the next level, take it the step up. His demeanor hasn't shown us that he will do that. That's why we're concerned here on Nickel City Crew. The
Right.
demeanor
Right.
is the
Yes.
demeanor, stick to the
Yes.
process, team conservative. This is how we do it, in and eat and out. And then you go get your ass kicked in the playoffs, and it's still kind of that vibe. And
Yes.
then you win the 13 games. He's probably shooting himself in the foot for winning all these regular season games. Like go 9-7 and then lose in the playoffs, and you probably be a lot more safe than you are right now, being
Right.
13-3 and
The
then or
front runner.
13-4 and losing in the playoffs. So that's again and again, it's calling out the situation of it's not good enough because of you. So what are you going to do to change?
Yeah, man. It's interesting because like I respect the conversation, and I understand that there's a certain section of Bill's Mafia, Nickel City Crew, that will think that we sound crazy to even discuss the fact that he could possibly be replaced. My main thing is that, like, Philadelphia, is a prime example. And they tried to compare Sean McDermott to Doc Rivers, and in respects to the fact of how he's he's maxed out at the second round these last 3 years, and Sean McDermott's coming up on that same thing. And like, but he's won so many games. And you heard Mike Shope even talk about how many games has he won and the percentages of game. Again, it's just more for me. It sounds like a clutching of pearls. Now, one of the main points I heard this morning that I really agreed with from Sneaky Joe was that he doesn't believe that if we do change coaches down the road to an offensive coach, that the drop off will be that dramatic because of 17. I totally agree. I know that you do as well, and I don't even have to speak for you, but I know you do because of the fact of how much we have faith in Josh Allen. And I'm in a situation where I want everything to be on the table. And if it comes to a situation where he is going to consistently change his stripes in the biggest moments, then that is a character flaw. Period. Now, you may not want to agree with it. You may want to, speak to his regular season success. You may want to speak to the fact that he's changed, on his aggressiveness and different things like that during the regular season throughout his tenure, and he's gotten better and better. And we've acknowledged that, DT. We've said that we've given him his flowers, that he's gotten better on that. But it really is the diamonds part that you're talking about. Like, when the pressure is the greatest, I need you to do what you're asking your team to do. I need you to exemplify those same things. I need you to have those same traits in your coaching style. Listen, the field goals were the field goals, and it was very frustrating to watch that game against Kansas City because you knew that we had to keep up with Patrick Mahomes. So every time you kick a field goal, even though you thought after the game he talks about field goals and trying to give a boost to the team, you're zapping the energy. You're taking the energy from your own team. So whatever you even thought that you were doing positive is having a negative effect on the team, because what I thought the other day, DT, and I want you to think about this and chew on this. When Stephon Diggs got his hands over his head and he's looking at the confetti, it wasn't a close game. That game was a blowout by the end. He had his hands on his head, in my opinion. This is my humble opinion. He had his hands on his head because he was looking at the field and seeing all of the meat that was on the bone, DT, all of the plays that were missed out on that field that they left out there, that, like, man, if our coach would have had our back on this third down, this fourth down, that, like, we were inside the 10 a few times and kicked field goals, DT. Keep it real now. Like Nickel City Crew, we're not gonna sugarcoat it. He kicked field goals inside the 15, inside the 10 multiple times that game. What kind of message is that sending to your team? What kind of message is that? This is the biggest game. This is the AFC Championship.
Rob,
we're here on the doorstep, right?
This year too, we're looking at, players like Stephon Diggs, who have always been boisterous, but this year in particular, you're seeing visible frustration from him, on a regular basis. And, not that he wasn't a competitor, didn't have that frustration in the previous years when they were losing those games, but visual frustration from him this year because they didn't do it again. So what, if 4 years in a row happens? Is it just Stephon Diggs? Is it other players? Is it Josh Allen himself? Like, does this start, chain reaction? And that's, then you lose the whole team at that point, and then you're really screwed, right? So the point is, I don't think, defensive coaches can win a Super Bowl. It's happened, but the way of the league, obviously, is going offensive. And you look at the best team in the Kansas City Chiefs, who sits next to Pat Mahomes on the bench after a series?
Right. Andy Reid. He's right
Andy
there.
Reid.
He's right
Talking
there.
the next sequence, making sure it's absolutely perfect on the offensive side. They go into the Super Bowl, play the best defense since the '85 Bears,
right?
And the Eagles
Ravens.
The Eagles don't touch a sack, and it's what's the final score? 38-42. What's the final score of the Super Bowl?
Yeah, 45. Yeah, 42-35 or something like that.
Yeah. So we look. I'm not saying a defensive coach can't win it, but the teams that have won it most previously with franchise quarterbacks such as Josh Allen, coaches sit next to him after every series. Offense. Defense matters, but it sounds like offense wins championships. So you got to think of that too if we see another similar situation this year.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's just such an interesting topic, and it's something that it percolates throughout the fan base, because I know that I'm not the only person that feels this way. I know you're not as well. I know there are other members of Nickel City Crew, Bills Mafia, who feel this way in respects to literally the caller after me, DT, was like, praising my call for the fact that I was, echoing what he felt, and and told Shope the Bulldog yesterday that I was hitting on the head of some of the points of it. And like my crux of my argument was that I want to look at him. I don't want to keep looking for other reasons to wonder why we're not getting over the hump. I want to look at him. I want to examine him. I want to examine some of the decisions that he's making, because it makes me seem like we're at a disadvantage when it comes to the biggest games. Because regardless of whatever you want to say, again, we've already talked about it ad nauseum. 13 seconds was a communication breakdown of epic proportions. And whether you want to lay it all at Sean McDermott or you don't, he runs the ship. So I don't care whatever Leslie Frazier was calling on first and second down or whatever, the first two plays of that drive after the kick. So people are hung up on the kick. And we talked about that. 3 decisions, 13 seconds. We've talked about all of it. The kick would have been nice. You would have drained some more time off the clock. Irregardless of not squibbing it, you still had an opportunity to win the game. Teams do not lose the game up with 13 seconds to go, and they're up. They don't lose that game. So there's something that's wrong with the actual, execution of the team. And I just want him to take the bull by the horns. I want him to take the buffalo by the horns, so to speak. I want him to be more assertive. So that's why I never got mad at Leslie Frazier, because he's his boss. And I've always talked about that. We've always talked about that, DT. He's his boss. So if there was something that looked wrong on those plays, then make an adjustment, because I don't want to be embarrassed when Patrick Mahomes yells on national TV to Travis Kelce to do it, because he sees what everybody else sees, that we're 7-8 yards off. The same thing with the Cincinnati game. Same thing, DT. So I don't care. I'm not going to kick Leslie Frazier's ass on the way out the door. And we've already talked about that with that episode that was dedicated to him, DT. I'm not going to let everybody just blaspheme this guy and say it was all his fault and different things like that. Listen, who's his boss? Who's in control of every single play call? Who hears every single play call, offense and defense? It is the head coach. Step up, say something, do something to help affect your team in a positive way, because energy is real. And I feel like he's zapped the energy from this team year after year after year since Sugar High Josh, because even you heard me on the call, DT, I was not mad after Houston. It was crappy. I thought we had an opportunity to win that game, obviously up 16-0, and we're all at a party. We're having a great time. And he's, lateraling back to Dawson Knox. Obviously, he was, going through some shit, eating all those runts and Skittles. I get it. But we all still felt like we were going up. We still felt like we were going up. I feel like we plateaued, man. I feel like we plateaued.
And plateauing here is not good enough.
Not with 17.
Right?
No, not with a quarterback like ours.
Until a ring's on your finger, it's not good enough. And so I'll ask you this, Rob. Do you think Doc Rivers was surprised when he got fired?
No, of course not. No. Stephen A. Smith said the night before that they just cost Doc Rivers his job. He said James Harden just cost him his job.
And do you think he was surprised? No. Do you think Doug Peterson, even after that Super Bowl, do you think he was surprised after the year they had the next year and he got canned?
No, because of the mismanagement of Carson Wentz and how everything went to bed.
I mean, Sean McDermott, unless he's literally living under a rock and only the blinders are on the organization, he looks at nothing else, he's got to know it will eventually happen to him if he doesn't win a Super Bowl, So this is something that, also for his, mentality, he probably, it'd be tough to go get a head coaching job right out of this. He'd be back to a coordinator role again. And you got to know that as a person.
He might get picked up, but it doesn't. I mean, he is on the defensive side of the ball. I'm not listening.
Sure.
I'm not. This is not.
But as a person, right?
As
a person, he's got to know that it's not good enough.
This is a results-based business. So anytime I hear fans talking about, everything that Jeremy White said this morning was about patience, and you're really just impatient. And I just want to put my hand up in the corner of the room as a season ticket holder, as somebody who has survived the drought, just like you and so many other Bills Mafia fans and Nickel City crew. We've all been here together as Bills Mafia. I'd like to put my hand up and say, hell yes, I am impatient. I'm impatient. I don't know any other way to sugarcoat it. I'm not, I don't feel bad for it. I don't think that's the actual crux of the actual episode from a couple weeks ago, DT, when I told everyone to grow up, like you just talked about. I want everybody to be okay with it. somebody on Twitter said that, yesterday they said, like, Bills fans are confusing, being happy with their team actually being good every year with, also not being okay with just being okay. And like I told them to, preach, like you're telling the truth. Like that is a true statement. We've talked about it all the time. I am very appreciative that he is professional. I want to win a Super Bowl. I want a parade. I want to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl, and I'll let the chips fall. I wonder if he can get us there, DT. And I think it's okay to ask those questions, especially after the consistency to me that I see that he shrivels when the lights are brightest, man. I don't know any other way. Like when I hear it on the radio, man, I don't know any other way to I just shake my head. Anybody who doesn't think that he has changed his stripes throughout the playoffs when he coaches and the decisions he makes, I just don't think you're paying much attention. I really don't think you're paying attention.
I agree to your point. Screw being patient here. I mean, I didn't have as much experience in the drought as you would say, and some of the other people I know. But yeah, we were patient. We've been patient. This is our deal now. And I'm not saying just fire them and you'll still be good and move on. As the Eagles dropped Doug Peterson, they flipped back and they're in the Super Bowl last year with
Right.
with the new coach.
Right.
That's not guaranteed to happen either. But it
I
seems
understand.
good players and good teams. I think if Andrew Reid retired, Mahomes and them would still be Super Bowl.
Absolutely, they'd be Super Bowl contenders. They would definitely be Super Bowl contenders because
the point of saying,
yeah,
it's the coach. But at the reverse end of that, it there can be change. We don't have to be patient because things happen for other teams that aren't patient at all. They had the Indianapolis Colts had Peyton Manning, and then the next year drafted Andrew Luck. Like,
look at
where's
the Spurs.
there?
Look at the
Yeah.
Spurs. They go through 10
Exactly.
years of no play. I think it's been 7 years no playoffs. 10 years since they won a playoff series. They go from the Admiral David Robinson. They go right to Tim Duncan, and now they get Wembanyama, and like everything is fine. Like why did that executive scream so much? Because he's thinking about all the money that they're getting ready to make. They're about to print money down there in San Antonio because talent sells.
I agree. Screw the patience, and back to our main point of there's no place to hide anymore, especially now. It's all your D, it's all you. One more year. If it's another loss, if it's another similar situation, because this team's going to the playoffs, Rob.
Absolutely.
I mean, no matter, even this schedule's tough, everything, whatever. Barring 17 not getting hurt, this team's going to the playoffs. So I don't care how many games. If we go, if we're the wild card and sneak in with 8 losses, whatever, we were going to the playoffs. We have the opportunity to win a Super Bowl. How are you going to change that? And there's no place to hide. And we keep going back to that. Screw patience. Do it now. What have you done for me lately? Do it now.
I mean, it's professional sports. I think it is a little bit fair. These guys are, he's compensated quite well. The coaching staff's compensated quite well. They're paid millions of dollars. This is their profession. And I just want to be okay with questioning if we can do better. It's not about necessarily having a name. I don't have a offensive, I don't even know who's going to be available. So like having a name available for you right now is not, it's not quite the point. My point is that I think the continuity should come from the offensive side of the football in this day and age, with the way that the league is run, with the way that the rules are set up to be advantageous for offense. I think that it's a situation where you would love to have an offensive coach that's with your quarterback and they're kind of just paired and they're married at the hip. A la Reid and Mahomes. They're just going to be together and they're going to grow together. And Sirianni and Hurts are going to grow together. And you know what I mean? And it's just a situation where it just makes the room better because you don't have to worry about cycling in and out coaches. And I would much rather find a defensive coordinator than I would have to find an offensive coordinator because now it's a new offense. And then some guys have new terminology and some guys have different types of things that, that they're looking for. And you never know what it's going to be like. And again, we're in the midst of that with Ken Dorsey. We're hoping that he's going to work out. We don't know. Last year had mixed reviews. Obviously, the stats say that he was great. You know what I mean? But listen, you have no idea until you get a chance to see exactly what's going on. So I'll be watching. I think it's something that everybody I just think it's something everybody should be paying attention to. It's not about firing your coach. It's about being okay with saying that, hey, I mean, maybe we can get better.
And I'm 100% fine with McDermott being the guy. If he can make the change and we can get over the hump and do this thing, I'm 100% cool
Of
with Sean
course.
McDermott
Of
being the face
course.
of this. I've 100% supported him. I supported the whole deal. I'm cool with him being the face of a Super Bowl winning team and going down in the history books as our guy, our Marv
No
Levy, if you will.
problem, man. Yeah,
I'm all about that.
no
He's
problem.
got the mojo for me to be cool with that. But he has it. So and it'll be a good story of change and growth
If
and
he
all
was
that stuff
scared
of
all the
each
time,
year. I got a
yeah,
little better. I got a
yeah.
little better. And now we finally pulled through because you see it a little bit. He's going for a little more on fourth down and
Yes,
this and that.
right.
But when it matters, it hasn't changed yet. So that's the next step he's got to take. And I'm 100% comfortable and cool with him being the face of this change in the deal. Like I don't want him to leave. I don't need him to leave. But we're saying he's it's not good enough if it continues this, and he shouldn't be a made man and a coach forever just because he got us out of the drought and won us a few games for
No,
4 years.
no, you would be
As
comparing him to the past, and we
yeah.
already talked about we need to stop doing that. We would be
And I'll
comparing
be
him to the
damned
past.
if Josh Allen goes down as another Phillip Rivers in this league. I'll be damned.
Yeah, man,
He's
that would be
way
really.
too good for that. Like, come on now.
That
So
would be horrible. I mean, that would
yeah,
be horrible. Another Dan Marino, another, to be another Rivers, like that would be horrible. Another Jim Kelly, unfortunately, like that would be horrible. Now, obviously, again, I can't speak out of both sides of my mouth. I'm looking for success. I'm looking to be in the Super Bowl. I want to represent the conference in the Super Bowl. I really do. I will let the chips fall, after that. And if McDermott takes us to the promised land and takes us to the Super Bowl, I will be okay. If we lose and we go to 0-5, I won't call for his job because I will never forget that Sunday as an adult. It'll be my first time. I was 5, 6, 7, and 8 for the Super Bowl run. I am jealous of the older Bills Mafia fans that were able to experience that as adults because I just can't imagine what it would have been like to watch those guys behind me, as you see on my posters. Like Thurman Thomas is one of my favorite Bills, and Bruce Smith and Andre. Like those are my guys. Like those are like they left such an impression on me as a Bills fan, like that I would have loved to have been able to experience those games as an adult. I wasn't. I was a kid. I've got vague memories. I cried, Super Bowl 25. Yeah, Super Bowl 26, we kind of got blown out a little bit. Super Bowl 27, we definitely got blown out. I cried. And Super Bowl 28, we were up at halftime, and I thought that we were going to win, so I cried. Like there was no escape from it. So like it's a situation where I would love to be able to experience that. And if Sean McDermott takes us there, absolutely, I'll be in his corner. It's just the fact that I just think that he's changed his stripes, and I now expect him to coach scared in the games. I was not thinking that we're going to lose. I remember, I'll never forget that Cincinnati game. You and I drive into that game, playoff game, and you were full of energy and you were full of bravado. And you remember, I was more quiet and I was like more like I am now starting to expect him to be scared, just to be quite frank, man. I'm expecting him in big games to punt the ball. I'm expecting him to do some of the things he did that day, the same way he did against Kansas City the year before and Kansas City the year before that. And I'm just expecting him just to kind of come up small. I'm expecting it. And that's not, I don't like feeling that way about my coach, especially not with this type of team, especially not with the quarterback that we have, especially not.
no, yeah, let the chips fall, baby. Let the chips fall. I think that's a fair assessment. I think you said that great. You don't expect it, and
That's not
that's
good though, DT.
no.
Like that's not the guy that we're supposed to be caping up for. And like Bills Mafia,
Mhm.
half of them, even over half of them are ready to fight you over McDermott. And I do understand the whole, professionalism. I get it, and we've talked about it ad nauseum. When we get it and we respect it, and I do think that he has a nice sense of the players. Sometimes the voice starts then want, and it becomes the peanut teacher, and then want. And sometimes the players need a new voice. It happens in the NBA all of the time. It happens in hockey way even more than the NBA,
Yeah.
which changes out coaches like laundry.
Yeah.
I mean, NBA changes out coaches fairly quickly. And you saw that with Doc Rivers and Mike Budenholzer down there in Milwaukee and all these coaches getting fired, and Monty Williams out west, and he's got Kevin Durant and Booker, and he's fired. Because listen, man, we've got these big time talents. A new owner comes in and he's like, no, not good enough. Sorry, man. I'll find somebody else that I want. And
The Vegas Knights.
Nobody blinks an eye.
The Vegas Knights are in their third conference championship.
Yes.
In 4 years with their third different coach in the conference championship.
Yep, I know. Yes, they're the Western Conference Final. Yes,
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. Like it just happens in pro sports way more often. I think that the NFL is more of an anomaly where it doesn't happen as much. Obviously, we've got Black Monday where all the coaches get fired after the season, but those are for the bad teams. It rarely happens with a good team. And I just want it to be a situation where we're not scared that, hey, we got a good team, but maybe this is not enough. And I want us to be able to explore that. That's all, DT.
Yeah,
I mean, you could crucify me, man.
I'm with you.
Everybody,
I'm with
know
you.
what I mean?
I'm with you. And with the Mafia, we on the Mafia references. Sean McDermott's a nice foot soldier for us right now. But when you robbing us the bank, baby? When you robbing us the bank? Like you can, go collect my money from all the corner stores and whatever.
Right.
But when you stepping up, when you giving us the big score.
That's like Ray Liotta, man, in Goodfellas. He said, "You
Yeah.
did it, you did it, you did it." Yep. When they took the airplane heist. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. I'm waiting for it. We'll see if it ever comes. DT, man, I really appreciate you, man. It just made me feel good again for Nickel City Crew. These are conversations that you and I have already had again in season 2. You guys can fact check us and check us out. Season 2, season 1 really even goes back to on some of the McDermott talk. We have never called for his job, even after 13 seconds. We did not call for his job, and that was the toughest part and toughest time of my Bill's life was 13 seconds, and how much of a gut punch that was. We didn't call for his job. We wanted everybody to be on high alert to notice a tendency, and I think that tendency is still prevalent. I think that it is still a part of his nature, and I just I think that it is okay to look at it. And that's all. I just think it's okay to look at it. And I thought it was really cool, DT. We sparked the show yesterday, this morning, and this afternoon on WGR. I thought that was pretty cool that the topic kind of lasted that long, man. I thought it was cool.
Hell yeah, Nickel City. We're on it, baby. We're on it. If you ever heard about us, get to know it.
I like it. Yeah, man. I like it a lot, DT. As always, man. These were my Bills thoughts said out loud. Please spread love, not hate. Hit them with a Go Bills tonight, DT, man. We'll come back, man. I know we're getting ready. Mini camp just finished up with rookie mini camp, and then we've got mini camp for the rest of the players, man. Oak Hill out in Rochester right now. Everybody's golfing, and everybody's checking out John Rahm and all those guys out there, and Rory and his wife is from Rochester, so everybody's hanging out in Oak Hill this weekend, man. Are you heading out there, man? What you gonna do, DT?
TBD for DT
yeah,
right now.
It's pretty cold, man. It's kind of cold.
Yeah, it's cool. It is cool.
Cold.
And playing 100+ holes of golf last week, and down in Myrtle
yes,
Beach,
right in Myrtle Beach. Yes.
So I might be taking just a little get right break this weekend, but you never know.
Yeah.
Enterprise being a big sponsor there. So
yes.
There's a few tickets laying around, so it depends. But
we'll see
as of right now, no. I
like,
went 10 years ago. I went 10 years ago to the
you did 2013.
It was great. It was great. And
Yeah.
I'd like to get out there, but we'll see. I'll definitely be watching for sure.
Yeah. Great golf course, and I know that all the players love it and talk about how much of a great golf course it is. So good luck to those competitors out there this weekend, and obviously they'll bring some good business to the Rochester area there at Oak Hill. So hit them with a Go Bills, DT. We'll holler at everybody, man. We'll keep them coming, man. I mean, we just starting shows and bringing up topics for people to chew on. That's all, man.
Yeah. And again, we're not calling for anybody's job. Just saying, not on trial enough. Go Bills.
Go Bills, man. I like it a lot, man. Go Bills.